if you want to build the delivery app today, I mean, you essentially have two choices. You can spend maybe $500,000, hire a dedicated engineering team, and like if you are incredibly lucky, launch in 18 months.
Right, which is a massive gamble.
Exactly. Or you can spend about $100, license existing infrastructure, and literally start taking orders by this Friday.
It sounds almost made up when you put it like that.
It really does.
Yeah.
But we are looking at a stack of industry research today centered entirely around that second option, this invisible software engine that is quietly powering a massive shift in how we buy things.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
Because it's August 2026.
Yeah.
And you've probably noticed that we are all starting to bypass those massive third-party aggregator apps. DoorDash, Uber Eats, all of those.
Yep.
We want to order directly from the source.
Oh, absolutely. The novelty of the giant marketplace app has definitely worn thin. I mean, consumers are realizing that those platforms insert a massive friction point and, well, a massive financial tax between them and the actual businesses they want to support.
But the hurdle has always been the technology, right? A local coffee shop or like an independent pharmacy simply doesn't have the runway to become a software company just to deliver a latte or a prescription.
No, of course not. They don't have the capital.
So our mission for today's deep dive is to break down the specific technology bridging that gap. The sources call it white label delivery software for marketplaces. We're going to explore how the software physically functions, how businesses are using it to launch complex delivery empires in a matter of weeks, and the very real, sometimes fatal traps buried in the fine print.
It completely inverts the barrier to entry. Historically, robust logistical software was a moat that only venture-backed monopolies could afford to build. Now, that same tier of technology is effectively commoditized. It's available to the storefront down your street.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because we need to establish the baseline of what we are actually looking at. When the industry reports talk about white label delivery software, I mean, we aren't talking about a simple website plugin.
Far from it. We're talking about a comprehensive, ready-to-deploy software platform built by a third-party vendor. But instead of that vendor putting their own brand on it and trying to acquire consumers.
Like an Uber Eats would.
Right, exactly. Instead of doing that, they license the underlying framework to another business. The business takes this empty shell, injects their own branding, their own localized inventory, their own domain name, and just deploys it as a proprietary product.
So from the perspective of the person downloading the app, they are interacting purely with Joe's Coffee or Downtown Pharmacy.
Exactly.
The third-party vendor is entirely invisible to the end user.
Yeah, the vendor is strictly the mechanic in the background. They maintain the servers, handle the cybersecurity protocols, push bug fixes, manage OS updates, all of that. The business gets all the brand equity, and most importantly, they get all the first-party customer data.
The timeline contrast here is what really jumps out from the research. If you map out a custom in-house build, architecting the database, designing the UI, coding the backend, going through beta testing.
It takes forever.
Yeah, you are staring down a 6 to 18-month gauntlet.
And that is assuming a linear development cycle, which, let's be honest, almost never happens. The real time sink in custom software isn't writing the initial code. It's QA testing for thousands of edge cases.
What kind of edge cases?
Well, what happens when a driver loses cellular signal in a concrete elevator right as a customer cancels an order?
Oh, well. Yeah.
Right. A custom build has to discover and patch that vulnerability manually. But a white label platform has already had that exact edge case tested and patched by thousands of other businesses running the same core code. Because of that, a business can go live in 2 to 6 weeks.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that deployment speed is the actual competitive advantage. In 2026, consumer habits shift so rapidly that spending 18 months in a development sandbox is just a massive liability.
It really is. The opportunity cost of slow deployment is fatal.
Because by the time your custom-coded, meticulously unique app hits the market, the specific delivery trend you were trying to capitalize on might have completely evaporated.
Exactly. You don't win by having the most unique code structure. You win by capturing the market demand the moment it materializes.
It makes me think about how airlines operate. If you want to start a new commercial airline, you don't hire metallurgists to invent a new type of aluminum and build a jet engine from scratch.
Right, you just lease one.
Yeah, you lease a Boeing or an Airbus. The fuselage and the aerodynamics are identical to your competitors. You compete entirely on the route you choose to fly, the interior cabin experience, and the customer service. White label software is basically just leasing the fuselage.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. You are outsourcing the physical engineering so you can focus exclusively on the hospitality and the logistics.
I do want to challenge the scalability of this, though.
Okay, go for it.
If we were talking about a pre-configured, templated fuselage, how does it handle vastly different logistical realities? The mechanics of delivering a hot pizza in 30 minutes are completely different from delivering prescription medication.
That's true.
Medication might require a cold chain or, mandatory ID verification at the door. If it's a template, isn't it too rigid to handle anything outside of fast food?
Well, the architecture is actually highly modular rather than rigid. Our sources point out that this software is heavily adopted across grocery, quick commerce, courier services, liquor delivery, and even subscription meal kits.
Oh, so it's not just restaurants.
Not at all. The fundamental data structure, which is just connecting a node of origin, a moving node, and a destination node, is universal.
So the system treats a pizza and a legal document as the exact same thing, just a data packet moving through geographic space.
Under the hood, yes. The specific requirements you mentioned, like ID verification for pharmaceuticals or age verification for liquor, are simply toggles within the admin panel.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they just force a specific action in the driver's interface before the state of the order can change to completed. But the core routing engine remains completely identical.
That transition into the underlying mechanics is crucial, because here's where it gets really interesting. We throw the word app around as if it's a single standalone icon on your phone. But this software is actually a highly complex microservices ecosystem.
It is a massive orchestration effort. When you license a white label delivery platform, you are actually spinning up 4 or 5 distinct interconnected applications that have to synchronize in milliseconds.
Let's break down that ecosystem for the listener, because the sheer scale of the engineering here is what makes the alternative, building it from scratch, so absurd.
Right.
The first pillar is the customer interface. That's the app or website where the end user browses the catalog, inputs payment, watches the delivery map, all that stuff.
The second pillar is the merchant panel. This is a completely different interface, usually sitting on a tablet in a chaotic restaurant kitchen or a retail stockroom.
Right, which sounds like a nightmare for latency.
Oh, it has to handle rapid catalog management, toggle item availability instantly, and parse incoming orders.
And the latency between those two pillars has to be practically zero, right? If a boutique shop has one specific item left in stock and a customer puts it in their cart, the merchant panel has to sync instantly to prevent a double order scenario.
Exactly. State management across distributed devices is incredibly difficult to code. But that's only half the equation. Once the merchant accepts the order, you invoke the third pillar.
Which is the driver, right?
Yep, the delivery agent app. This is a specialized tool for the writer handling order assignment, turn-by-turn navigation, and proof of delivery protocols like photo uploads.
Okay, so that's 3 apps. And overseeing all of this is the fourth pillar, the admin dashboard. That's the command center where the platform owner configures commission rates, monitors system-wide analytics, and resolves active disputes.
And the crazy part is the customer, merchant, and driver never even know this dashboard exists.
Right. And tying those 4 distinct applications together requires a fifth pillar, a vast network of APIs, or application programming interfaces. These are basically the data bridges connecting the platform to the outside world.
Let's dig into that, because I know our tech-savvy listeners hear API and might wonder why a business doesn't just build their own front end and hook it up to a few existing delivery APIs.
Yeah, why buy the whole white label ecosystem when you can just stitch together Stripe for payments, Google Maps for routing, and an external dispatch API?
Because orchestrating the communication between those APIs is where systems collapse. If you just buy a dispatch API, you're only getting the raw mathematical logic for routing.
So you still have to build everything else.
Exactly. Your engineers still have to build the front-end user interfaces, build the state management system that tells the UI when to update, and write the error handling code for when an API request fails. When you license the full white label platform, that orchestration layer is already built, tested, and optimized.
I want to look closely at the automated order dispatch feature highlighted in the sources, because it perfectly illustrates that orchestration. This system doesn't just broadcast a generic ping to every driver in a 5-mile radius and hope someone accepts it.
No, it uses continuous geospatial querying. The algorithm is constantly calculating the heading and velocity of dozens of drivers simultaneously.
Wait, simultaneously.
Yeah. When an order is placed, it factors in the restaurant's historical prep time, cross-references real-time traffic density via a mapping API, and identifies the exact driver whose vector will put them at the pickup location precisely as the food is ready.
See, maintaining a synchronized microservices architecture with real-time geospatial querying requires massive server overhead. Which brings up a glaring question. If this takes so much processing power and algorithmic sophistication, how are these vendors not charging enterprise-level prices?
The industry breakdown cites some shocking economics here.
It really does.
The numbers are counterintuitive until you understand the deployment model. The most common pricing structure is a software as a service, or SaaS, subscription. Our sources show this ranges from just $100 to $1,500 per month.
$100 a month for a 5-pillar logistical ecosystem processing real-time telemetry. I mean, I know local businesses that spend more than that on window cleaning. How is that mathematically possible for the vendor?
It is made possible through multi-tenant architecture. The vendor isn't spinning up a brand new server rack and a fresh code base for every single client. All the clients are operating on the exact same core infrastructure.
Right, so they share the load.
Exactly. The vendor only has to maintain one code base, which dramatically lowers their overhead. That allows them to lease access at a fraction of the cost of custom development.
And for those who want to avoid monthly fees entirely, the sources outline a self-hosted option, a one-time licensing fee ranging from roughly $1,500 to $25,000. You basically take the software, put it on your own AWS or Google Cloud servers, and you sever the monthly financial cord completely.
What's fascinating here is how this pricing structure completely upends the power dynamics of local commerce. Consider the math on a traditional third-party marketplace app. If a local restaurant relies on those giants, they are siphoning off 20 to 30% of the gross revenue on every single order.
It is a punitive tax on volume. The busier a restaurant gets on a third-party app, the more money they hemorrhage in commission fees.
But the sources point to a massive shift toward commission-free subscription plans enabled by white label software.
Right, because if your software cost is fixed at, say, $200 a month, your profit margins scale exponentially as your order volume increases. You are retaining 100% of the transactional revenue.
Exactly. It changes everything.
I do want to push back on the user experience side of this, though. A common and, frankly, very valid critique of multi-tenant templated software is that the end product feels soulless.
Oh, sure.
If 1,000 businesses are using the exact same underlying code base, doesn't the final consumer app just feel like a generic cookie-cutter clone?
It absolutely can if the business is lazy. But the research provided a specific case study that proves how deeply you can manipulate the presentation layer of this software. The company's called Borku.
Right, Borku. They operate in the UK, and they built their platform on a white label engine called Enatega. But they didn't just upload their logo and call it a day. They serve a highly specific niche market, which is delivering diverse African cuisine.
And that required fundamental changes to the data schema. Standard restaurant templates usually force merchants into a rigid, westernized menu hierarchy, appetizers, mains, sides, desserts.
Which doesn't work for everything.
Exactly. Borku realized that complex regional dishes like West African jollof rice or North African tagines often involve intricate, customizable components that break those standard database schemas.
So instead of forcing the local chefs to cram their menus into a broken format, Borku went into the white label architecture and customized the underlying database structures to reflect the cultural reality of the food.
Yeah, they overhauled the entire user interface to reflect African cultural themes. And they recognized that their specific demographic of local independent chefs might lack technical expertise.
Oh, what did they do?
They utilized the flexibility of the platform to build highly simplified, frictionless onboarding portals specifically tailored for their merchants.
And they wired up Stripe to handle all the back-end payment processing without the customer ever leaving the app. It really reinforces the idea that the white label software is just the plumbing. Borku proved that if you don't have to waste your capital inventing the plumbing, you can invest all your resources into creating a highly bespoke, culturally resonant experience for a specific community.
The plumbing is identical, but the house built on top of it is entirely unique.
Exactly.
However, relying on someone else's plumbing introduces massive vulnerabilities, which is where the research takes a stark turn.
Yeah, let's talk about the dark side. So what does this all mean for someone actually shopping for this software? If you're a business owner preparing to sign a contract, what is the single biggest technical trap you need to be hunting for in the fine print?
The most dangerous trap outlined in the source material revolves entirely around App Store ownership. When your customized ecosystem is finalized, the customer and driver apps must be published to the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store so people can actually download them.
Which requires an official developer account with Apple and Google.
Right. And here is the trap. Predatory vendors will insist on publishing your apps under their master vendor developer account rather than requiring you to set up your own independent business account.
Wait, if I own the trademark, the branding, and the customer base, but the app lives on the vendor's developer account, what happens if I want to fire the vendor in 3 years and move to a better software provider?
You lose everything.
Everything.
Everything. The digital real estate belongs to the account holder. You cannot migrate an App Store listing from their account to yours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you lose every single 5-star review, your search ranking history is wiped out, and crucially, you lose the ability to push updates to the thousands of customers who already have the app installed on their phones. Your app simply dies, and you have to start from zero with a brand new listing.
That is a catastrophic vulnerability. You are essentially building a thriving digital storefront on land owned by a landlord who can evict your data at any moment. You absolutely must ensure the contract mandates publishing under your own developer credentials.
Data lock-in is another major red flag. You must define, in writing, how your database is structured. If you leave, can you freely export your customer lists, merchant data, and historical order telemetry in a usable format? Or does the vendor hold your own analytics hostage in a proprietary silo?
And then there's the illusion of the upfront price tag. The sources warn against vendors offering rock-bottom initial fees that basically mask a labyrinth of hidden costs.
Oh, the hidden costs will get you.
Yeah, you might pay a low entry fee, but suddenly you are being billed by the hour for basic server deployment, or charged premium rates for customer support when the API integration crashes in the middle of the Friday dinner rush.
This raises an important question regarding the ultimate control of the software. You must ask the vendor directly, am I buying the source code, or am I merely licensing the compiled software?
Let's clarify the mechanics of that for the listener. If I pay $25,000 for a self-hosted lifetime license, I have the software on my servers. But if I only have a license and I don't own the underlying proprietary source code, what happens when Apple pushes a massive iOS update that changes how background location tracking works?
If Apple deprecates a framework, the core code of your app must be rewritten to comply, or it will be removed from the App Store. If you do not own the source code, your internal engineers cannot legally or technically open up the architecture to make that fix. You are entirely dependent on the vendor to write the patch and push the update. If your vendor goes bankrupt or simply decides to sunset that version of the software, your app is permanently broken.
That is a terrifying reality check. For the vast majority of businesses, licensing the code is the only financially viable path. But you have to go into that relationship understanding that your technical survival is directly tethered to the vendor's competence.
Exactly. You are trading ultimate architectural control for unprecedented speed and cost efficiency. It is a calculated risk.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of technical and strategic ground today. Looking at the entirety of the research, how do we distill this down? What is the core takeaway for the listener evaluating this landscape?
The overarching narrative from the data is this. We have crossed a threshold where writing proprietary code is no longer a prerequisite for digital dominance in local commerce. The businesses that are capturing market share are the ones leveraging these pre-built, battle-tested foundations, allowing them to redeploy their capital away from software engineering and directly into community building, specialized curation, and marketing.
Yeah, whether you listening are a tech-adjacent startup, a sprawling regional franchise, or a single neighborhood pharmacy, this technology recalibrates what is possible. A logistical problem that used to require a massive engineering department and 18 months of runway can now be solved in a few weeks with a fraction of the budget.
It's incredible.
You might be licensing the underlying mechanics, but the customer relationship, the brand equity, and the localized data remain strictly yours.
It does leave us with a rather provocative final thought to consider. If we are entering an era where any local merchant can casually license the exact same sophisticated real-time logistical architecture that venture capitalists spent billions of dollars developing just a few years ago, does the underlying technology even offer a competitive advantage anymore?
That's a great point.
When the neighborhood florist has the exact same algorithmic routing capabilities as a Silicon Valley giant, it suggests that the future of commerce won't be won by whoever writes the most elegant code. It will be won entirely by whoever cultivates the most loyal community.
The technology has simply become a utility, like electricity. It's no longer about who can build the power plant. It's about what you choose to illuminate. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems operating invisibly around you. Keep pushing for the why in the sources you read, and we will catch you next time.